Hello, Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator podcast. I'm your host, Dana, and today we are talking about the season 10 Love is Blind finale. Let's get into it. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope everyone's had an amazing week. I am so glad it's Friday. Now that I'm working full time, I am really noticing how tired I am at the end of the week and how much I really, really need that extra time. Last night, I made notes on Love is Blind, and I was going to record it this morning before work, but then I did not get up early enough. Then I was going to record at lunch, but I felt like I needed a brain break at lunch. So here we are after work, and I'm recording this for you today. And I honestly don't think this is going to be that long of an episode because we are talking about the Love is Blind weddings. And by weddings, I mean the couple of weddings that did actually happen. What a clusterfuck of a season. And I say that as if we don't say that every season, because it truly is. These people were just different in a fascinating sort of way. Like, it just felt like we were getting so far away from the original concept of this show, which is Love is Blind. And I just felt like we had so many people here who had so many, what do you call them, like deal breakers that they probably should have thought about before they even came into this experiment. Also, just to let you guys know, we have the reunion next Wednesday, and then next Friday, I will be airing my reunion recap episode with Madison Maidenberg from the Denver season of Love is Blind. So from Madison and Joe, that's going to be an awesome episode. I cannot wait to hear her hot takes. I mean, she is in the Love is Blind family, so the girl is going to have the tea and the girl is going to have a lot of things to say. So I'm very excited about that. So that will be next Friday. And then we're done with Love is Blind, which I'm happy about. I'm kind of happy about just because I've been doing it as a separate series and there's just so much other stuff on TV right now. Oh, I also wanted to know if you guys want me to cover Southern Hospitality on the Patreon. I decided not to do it on the main feed because I feel like not a lot of people watch it. But for the Patreon babies, I would love to know if that's something that you'd want. A couple of the ladies have reached out and been like, yeah, let's do Southern Hospitality. But yeah, I want to know if that's something you guys are interested in. And also join the Patreon, you guys. It's patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator podcast. You get 4 extra podcast episodes a month, ad-free episodes and early episodes, as well as bonus content. We've done a ton of stuff over there. We did the whole first season of Vanderpump Rules OG. We've done McBee Dynasty season 2. We've done Honestly Cavallari, the headline tour season 1. We did the Real Housewives of London season 1. So lots of fun stuff over there that you can also listen to as part of the archive when you join. And yeah, it's only $5. So head on over. But let's get into our episode today. Let's talk the Love is Blind finale. Oh, and by the way, guys, on Monday when we do the reality roundup, we're going to talk all the tea from Love is Blind. So there's definitely a bunch of stuff I know about these couples that I could add to this episode, but I feel like let's just talk about it on Monday. That's our news episode. It'll be some tea that apparently has come out about the reunion, some articles and interviews that people have done since the filming, and we'll get into all of that. So for now, we're just going to be talking the episode as we always do. So we'll start with Mike and Emma because we pick up where we left off, where Emma has said yes in the longest, most drawn out yes I have ever seen someone do. But remember that Mike said in his speech when he went first, because they didn't have them actually say yes or no, they just had them like give their speeches about like why they love each other or not. And in that speech, he said, I need to know for a fact with absolute certainty that you want to have kids. And then when Emma did her speech, she didn't say that, right? So he ends up saying no. And he says that he wants to have kids and he wants to know that she 100% wants a family with him. And he's worried that she will change her mind down the road. And that's exactly what his parents said. It was the same fear. His parents, I mean, the mom especially, was kind of bitchy in the last episode. And you could tell that she was absolutely not here for this. We also got an implication in the last episode that Mike was talking to his mom quite frequently about his fears about this relationship or about getting married. He says that she's always the one who was calling him at the worst time, but still, how many calls were there, right? And as much as they say they like Emma, and, they were very kind at the end when they were speaking with her parents about it, at the end of the day, they just want different things. It just felt like this shouldn't have even have gotten to this point. I don't know. So they end up meeting up after she walks back down the aisle alone. And Emma says that she knows that he will be an amazing father and knows that they'll get married down the road. So we already have someone thinking that they are still in a relationship. And what's funny about this show is we've had that happen a few times, not many, but a few, where the couple at the altar says, I'm not ready, but I still want to be with you. Let's continue to date and see if we can be together. And it's never come to fruition where those people have ended up staying together or getting married or anything like that. And I wonder why that is, because the whole concept of marriage on this show, like it's called Love is Blind, not Marriage is Blind. Well, that's Married at First Sight. But like, why do they have to get married at the end of this experiment, right? Like it is so fast. It is so crazy. So you would think that giving some of these people more time would lead to the desired result. But I guess the fact that it never, ever does could also speak to like the sociological experiment of this entire thing. And maybe love is blind. And even if they were to continue, the fact that anyone who continued dating didn't end up working out maybe shows that you don't need that extra time, that people know when they know. And if they said no at the altar, it's always going to be a no. I also wonder if there's something being put in their heads a little bit by the fact that the officiant always says, and it's only in the Love is Blind weddings, where the officiant always says, so it's part of like the script, that you either say yes today or say no and part ways forever. Why do they have to part ways forever, right? Like, why can't they date afterwards? So I wonder if there's any part of the people who are considering getting married on this show, if any of the contestants consider the fact that the officiant isn't even giving them the option of dating either. I know that's silly. It's just something I was thinking about because I'm like, why does the officiant always say you either need to get married today or you got to get out of here and we'll never see each other again? Like, why does it have to come to that? So Mike tells the camera that he wants to be with someone who is 100% on wanting kids. And Emma tells the camera that she knew that she could get there and hoped that that was enough for him, but it wasn't. And Mike tells the producer that if she had said, yes, I want kids with you, that it would have changed his answer. And so it feels like for these two, it's just a matter of timing almost. And I kind of feel like in a different time, right? In 6 months down the road, in 2 years down the road, she could so be ready and be in that right place. But the point is, they're not in that right place now. The impression that I got from her when she was on the Love to See It podcast last week, her and Jessica were on, I got the impression that they maybe were still together just because she spoke of him so kindly and lovingly, and there was no animosity whatsoever, that I feel like if they were no longer together, there would be. I could be wrong, right? They could always still be friends, or because these things filmed so long ago, you never know how people still feel, but that was the vibe I got. That being said, the Love to See It ladies, the ladies who host that podcast, Emma and Claire, they felt the opposite. They felt like they got a vibe that Mike and Emma are no longer together. And they were the ones who actually did the podcast episode with her. So who knows, but that's what we have on them. Plus, the reunion trailer didn't really feature them much. Like, I don't know, again, if that means anything good or bad, but we saw a lot more chaos in the reunion trailer, and none of that chaos seemed to involve Mike and Emma. So maybe that's something. Okay, let's move on to Amber and Jordan. So it's their wedding day. Amber tells her bridal party that Jordan met Emma yesterday, which is her daughter, and she did a magic show for him, and it was really cute. One of her friends cries at how far she's come because she's been in so many toxic relationships. And Amber tells the camera that her biggest fear is that Jordan is going to feel like this is a lot of pressure on him. Okay, Amber girl, he met your daughter the night before the wedding? Are you joking? Like, I am no parent, and I am definitely not the person to tell you how many times someone should meet your kid or how far in advance. But girl, you have to know, not even just for your daughter's sake, but for Jordan's. Like, how could he possibly say yes after meeting your daughter once the night before? I'm sorry, and I said this in the last episode, but I just feel like this isn't the right experiment for single parents, especially single parents with such young children. She's the primary caregiver. I mean, he's going to be living in their home. It's just so weird that they haven't been able to establish a relationship, right? And Jordan can love you till the cows come home, as they say. But he needs to love you guys as a family. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with Emma and there's no reason why he wouldn't love her, but he hasn't had the time. He's met her once. It's just, it's weird. And the vibe that you get from Emma this entire time, not Emma, sorry, Amber this entire time is like tension as fuck. Like she just seems really stiff and really hard and like this is the worst day of her life. It really feels like she has a literal pipe up her ass, keeping her afloat and keeping her really straight. And she is smiling, but like in this sort of fake way where you can tell that she is just absolutely miserable to be here. And I'm just like, what's going on here, right? So then you have Jordan arriving at the venue, and he tells the camera that he did not sleep great last night. We have Jordan's family joining him to talk, and he talks about how he met Emma and how it took a bit for her to warm up, but it was fun. He talks about how he doesn't want to live in Mount Vernon, which is where Amber and Emma live. So they still have to figure out their living situations, like where they're going to live, Emma's school, all of that. And Jordan's like, I like to live in the city to be close to restaurants and bars and like sporting events and stuff. And his sister encourages him to compromise, but like, dude, you don't even know where you're living? Like tomorrow? What is this? And it's just really not fair because again, she bought this house so long ago. It is so hard for anyone to afford to buy a home. So the fact that she was able to do this on her own and then renovate it for like 7 years, that's absolutely amazing. You don't want to, it's so much on a kid already to have a random guy moving in with you, let alone then having to move to a new house and a new school. When you are deciding to marry a single parent, you do have to make a lot of compromises and you do need to find a way to integrate yourself into their lives and not expect them to fully integrate into your life. I don't mean that he has to give up everything, but I think the living situation is really, really unfair. I don't know how serious Amber is about it. I mean, we heard her talk about it in the series of episodes where she's like, we could rent it out, we could do this and that, but the school that Emma is currently at, it would be an hour drive. So if they lived in the city, so it doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry, when do you think you're going to be going to like bars and restaurants and stuff? Like you have a young kid now. You're not going to be doing that like on the reg, right? You're going to be doing that when you have a babysitter, maybe once a month. Like it just feels like for the first time for me, like he's not really understanding the gravity of the situation. I felt like all the feelings that he had prior to now about being afraid, about building a relationship with this child, not knowing what it's like to be involved in a child's life and to be a pseudo parent, I thought all of those fears were totally valid. But what I'm noticing now is him really not having an understanding of what that really entails. That's partly on him, but it's also partly on Amber, right? Because I feel like, again, they're a package deal, Amber and Emma. And I feel like she needed to do a better job as well of telling him what that life is going to look like. I don't know. I feel like something happened the night before, like the day that he got to meet Emma. I feel like something happened because the way that Amber is just so stiff and so tense, the way that Jordan looks like he's going to cry, he keeps saying he's so nervous. It really looks like he's going to have a heart attack. Like, what happened? Like, neither of them say anything bad happened with Emma, but it really seems like something negative happened the day before that put them just both in a really bad place. Now, Amber says, I do when they get to the altar. But, she says, I understand if you have some doubts because I've got a lot going on. And again, her face looks so tense, and so does the room. Like, the entire room doesn't even seem like either of these people are going to say yes. And then Jordan says that he is going to follow his heart, and he says, I do. And his family looks shocked, like literally shocked. And even Amber's brother said to her earlier on in the day when he came to like help her get ready and stuff, he was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to happen. I think he needs more time. I think like he's not going to say yes. Amber's face was already so tense and monotone that it really didn't change. But I guess she really went into this with the idea that he wasn't going to say yes. And that's what I feel like happened over the weekend, where well, I don't know why I keep saying weekend. Well, no, I think the weddings were on a Monday, so I think it's relevant. Whatever happened on the weekend, where maybe she got a real sense of like, okay, he has no idea what this really entails. And so maybe she's just so tense, not just about what's going to happen at the altar, but the fact that you're going to put on a wedding dress in front of all your friends and family, get up to the altar for a guy that's likely to say no. How embarrassing, how awful, how so many things. Most people don't want to get married more than once, let alone put on a wedding dress more than once. I mean, there's so much that goes into this whole day, despite the fact that obviously she knows what that is. Like, can you literally imagine putting on a wedding dress for the first time, having all of your friends and family around for the first time, and then having a pretty good inkling that this person is going to say no? Like, why are we even here? I forget if there's an incentive for them to go to the altar. I feel like there was discussion about this last year and that there's definitely push from production, but I don't think there's extra money or anything. I do remember that Natalie and Deep D from way back, I forget what season it was, but the Chicago season, they've said on their podcast, Out of the Pods, that there used to be a clause in their contracts that if they don't go to the altar, they'll get fined. But now that's not there anymore. So it just really felt like it was very painful for her to go up to the altar. That being said, she was so happy at the end of it, right? Um, in the reunion trailer, we see her kind of storming away, but we don't know 100% what that means. I definitely have a little bit of tea that we could talk about on Reality Roundup on Monday. But as of right now, in this episode, these two tie the knot. And yeah, they're our first ones. Okay, let's move on to Brittany and Devontae. And they start on the couch as I expected. I did not expect a wedding scene from these two. I didn't see it in the preview for this episode, and I was right, as many other people were, except for Brittany, who seems to be the only one who doesn't seem to get that Devontae is not into her. Brittany says she's shocked that she's not getting married. She talks about how her parents were really excited and she has family coming into town. So Devontae's on the couch telling her that everything is great, which is a lie, but he couldn't go into a marriage not being sure if he could love her the way she wanted to be loved, which is also a lie. And it just feels like they're having two completely different conversations because Brittany's saying, I see marriage and kids with you. And then he says, I can't get married right now. Brittany tells him they are still together and they are engaged and they will get married later. And it's just like, it feels like she's just convincing herself of these things. Now, this is obviously like a repeat scene in the sense that this very much does not feel like the first conversation that they're having about this. But this is like the weekend before. They're supposed to be getting married on the Monday. And it really seems like from Brittany's perspective, she seems pretty cool, calm, and collected about this, despite the fact that she's disappointed because in her mind, this is just a roadblock in the eventual plan of them getting married because they are getting married and they are still together and they are engaged and they are going to have kids. And whether he's in the room or not for this, she is absolutely certain of this. And so it just feels so cringy because it's like, Brittany, girl. But also at the same time, he's telling her everything is great. He is lying. That is not true because he ends up telling producers such different things. So we have Brittany telling the camera that they're going to get married and have babies, which is embarrassing. And then we have Devontae telling the camera that the idea that she bought a dress beforehand made him feel like she would have just married anyone. Okay, I think that's a fair point. I don't think that's the reason he's saying no, but that's totally a fair point. And it is something that I thought of, right? I'm like, are you just so into the idea of getting married that it doesn't really matter who it is? Because think about it, at the beginning when they actually saw each other, once they proposed and did all that stuff and went to Mexico, she sat down with Alex and was like, oh, I'm not like typically attracted to a guy like Devontae. And she even said that like, love is blind only goes so far, but I have to be attracted to the person and I have to be into them. And then we never really heard anything about that again. From that scene, I got the impression that one, her and Alex might swap partners, or two, she was going to leave Devontae. But like I said, that never came up again. It was never an issue again. And she seemed to go into this with full force, full adrenaline. And that's great, right? Like, that is what you want. You want someone to put all their effort into the person that they've chosen. But she also compromised so much, which we've talked about, right? Like, she has her love languages, which isn't much. She just wants to be told that she's pretty and she just wants to be acknowledged in a room. And then she ends up giving up on that and being like, okay, well, I know you're the kind of guy who isn't really expressive about how I look and stuff. And that's just something I'm going to have to get used to. And then he has said something about needing to like peace out for several days and turn off his phone and go off the grid. And she's like, okay. So I really feel like she's making so many compromises. And I guess a big part of that has to do with the connection that they made in the pods. Now, Brittany tells the camera that she was so excited for him to see her in her wedding dress so that he could see her natural beauty and love her for her natural beauty. Ugh, Brittany, it's just, he's not attracted to her. The reason he's not giving into her love language is because he doesn't feel that. He feels like it would be dishonest to tell her that she's pretty when he doesn't feel that she's pretty. I truly believe that is what this is about. He kind of makes it seem like she's annoying and clingy and all these things. He tells the camera that she's like a shadow to him and it's something that he doesn't want to drag down the road if it's not going to work out. But like, I really do feel like it comes down to the looks thing. And like, I think that really gets to her too. For her to be like, I really wanted him to see me in this dress because then he would finally see me as beautiful. And it's like, oh, that just breaks my heart, doesn't it? Like, it's just so awful. This whole thing is just so embarrassing for her. Then we find out that Devante is just like kind of a dirtbag and like does really weird things because he says that basically if this was 2 years ago, he probably would have just gotten married, built resentment, and then like figured out how to get a divorce later. Okay, this man clearly has no like balls, right? He's basically saying that like I I don't have the strength to have these kinds of conversations with women. So somehow I then end up just getting myself into like these long-term relationships, drag them out until they kind of figure it out, or I ghost or disappear, or I figure out how to get out of it later. And it's like, so are we supposed to be impressed that you didn't do that this time? Because you are still kind of dragging this out. She thinks you're together. And we both know you're never gonna talk to her again. Like we all know that, right? Except for Brittany. Now, Brittany tells the camera that this gives her some doubt. Like, she was initially talking about how fine it all is. She knows they're going to get married, have babies, yada, yada, yada. But eventually, she does tell the camera that this does give her doubt. Like, is this why she hasn't met his mom? And maybe his feelings have changed for her since the pods. And she does start to tear up. Now, here she says her biggest fear is having to start all over and have to be vulnerable again with someone because it was really hard this time. And I think that that is a big piece of this. I don't remember how old she is offhand, but I remember in like my 20s and 30s where like every relationship that ends, you have that like, oh, I'm going to have to start all over again and show this part of myself all over again, which is really hard to do. And it is, right? I mean, that's why sometimes we even just go back to exes or we do, I don't know, we go back to people that we know just aren't right for us because it feels comfortable and easy because we've already been vulnerable with them and we don't have to like try to build that relationship up again. And it's hard. But at the same time, Brittany, you've only known this guy like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever this is, right? So I get what she's saying, but at the same time, this was a very, very short relationship where I get you have to start again, but this was only like 6 weeks ago. So just for the record. Now, Devante jokes that they will be in touch, but I honestly think, as I said, he fully ghosts her after this. Now, we've already talked about his ex who dated him from like July to December. We have more tea on him coming on Monday that apparently is going to come out at the reunion. Not sure if you heard it yet, but again, we'll talk about it on Monday. But still, I don't think that there was a moment where he went back to Brittany. And I just feel so bad for this girl. All right, let's move on to Ashley and Alex. So Ashley tells the camera that, she's been cheated on a lot, lied to, and she fell in love with Alex because he chose her. Now, this just feels like another sad thing that we keep hearing some of these women say. Like we heard Bree say something like this about Connor, where it's like, I love you because you love me. And I know it is so hard for us as women to find people that love us unconditionally. Like it really is such a prize, right? But we shouldn't see it that way in a sense because it should be sort of a given. And the reason we love someone should be for the person that they are, not for the fact that they love us for us. Because again, that should just be a given, right? And that's maybe why she stuck this out for as long as she did. And it's interesting because we do hear a lot of the women talk about how, or even the men, quite frankly, talk about how 2 years ago it would have been different. Like even Jessica talking about how 3 years ago it would have been completely different if Chris had made these comments about her body, showing that she has done so much growth. We have Devante saying that 2 years ago he probably would have just dragged this out. So he's trying to talk about his growth. And we have Ashley kind of talking about the same thing, where like a couple of years ago, she totally would have been with a guy like this. who wasn't necessarily honest with her, and she would have just been miserable, right? Now, she does say that she is expecting a no from Alex. I am curious why she says that. She says she knows she's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's more important that she decides whether that person is right for her. So, again, I do not know why you are in your wedding dress today, why you've dragged all of your friends and family here. If you are expecting a no and you're coming off very cold and hard right now, too, not in the same way that Amber is, but I think that the reason she wants to go forward with this, and spoiler alert, she says no to him, but I think that the reason she wanted to do all of this was that she could sort of put him in his place and have her moment, because why else? I guess she feels like to sort of make herself feel more on top and to not allow another man to decide her future or something like that. She wanted to have a moment, I guess, on camera. So the officiant asks Alex to go first, but Ashley cuts him off and says that she knows that he isn't choosing her and she does not choose him either. She says when they left the pods, they were like roommates. There was no intimacy. He didn't ask her any questions. And he would say a lot of words, but she found herself more confused at the end of his stories. Very true. She said that lying is a deal breaker for her. And then when we go over to Alex, I guess he feels like he wants to have his last word too. So he does say that it's mutual on his end, but he disagrees with her about her saying that like he didn't really have integrity. She sort of like summed the whole thing up in that sense, being like, you're not a person with integrity. That seemed to really bother him. So that seems to be what threw her off. But like, dude, I mean, even just the fact that he came into this wedding day talking about it like a soccer game. He's got all his guys there. His guys are asking if he's nervous. And he's like, what? No, it's just like any other game day. You guys, you know what it's like. You lace up. You got your boys behind you. You got all the people in the crowd. It's a wedding, man. It's about love. And you don't see any love on his face. You don't see any feelings. You don't see anything. Now, Ashley tells her friends after that he's a loser and he didn't even like her. And he told her all the time that she wasn't his type. So I actually didn't realize it was like often that he was telling her that kind of thing. And it's my understanding from like some articles that he's done or some interviews or whatever, he does sort of allude to that a lot more. But again, that's why this show is or this cast was such a bizarre fit, because like, why were there so many people who were so hung up on type? And like, for a skinny, leggy blonde not to be your type, it's just, okay, man. All right. I mean, I didn't really care whether she had her moment or not. He was a piece of shit, but also she's a Trumper, so I didn't really care for her either. But like, it was kind of nice to see a man being put in his place, though, regardless. It, I still have a hard time understanding why this guy wasn't attracted to her. Again, we all have our types, we all have our whatever interests, but if you were going to be so completely specific, where someone who, in my view, would be deemed like conventionally attractive, they're subjectively attractive and conventionally attractive. And conventionally attractive are the people that everybody finds attractive, like Ryan Reynolds or someone, right? And you would think that someone like Ashley would be like that. She's the prototype of being beautiful. And so it doesn't seem to have affected her self-esteem. So thank God for that, because again, that does happen a lot on this show. I mean, think about Madison last year with Joe, where he made that one comment on her body and she ended up developing a little bit of an eating disorder out of that. Okay, let's move on to Vic and Christine. And all we have to say about them is that they're perfect and they get married. So it's sort of funny that the show did not end up deciding to invest in them, as we talked about earlier in other reality roundups. They couldn't afford to send them to Mexico and to really keep track of them, because there were 7 couples in total, which is way more than they normally ever have. But this ends up being one of the only 2 couples that end up getting married. So they probably threw a lot of money at it at the end, but like, congratulations, good for them. I'm going to assume they're still married and happy because they just seem like they would be. I'd be very surprised if they aren't. And yeah, that's the end of Love is Blind, you guys. So like I said, we have a lot of tea to talk about on Monday, lots of interviews and stuff that came out of the reunion, apparently. And then we will do the reunion recap next Friday with Madison Maidenberg. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I love you, BBs. I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast. For more content, head over to patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator podcast. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. Love you, BB. See you next time.